The FNRad Snowboard Podcast is presented by Vans. Before I start the show, I want to just call out Salt Lake City listeners. If you're trying to go to the Bomb Hole Cup and you're trying to get an entry and you know they've been sold out forever, I actually bought a ticket back when they had some, and I thought I was going to go, but I can't. So I talked to Eastone, and he's letting me give the ticket to one lucky listener. And so I've decided whoever is the first person to comment on the Craig Kelly Instagram post in the FNRad feed here today that says, I want that Bombhole Bank Slalom ticket, it's yours, okay? So go and do that now, and good luck at the thing. Have fun. It's going to be awesome. Next year I'm going for sure. Okay, on to the show. Season 7 of FNRad is sponsored by Wired Snowboards, the Boardroom Snowboard Shop, Anon Optics, Time Bomb Trading, the Canadian distributor of Dragon, Stance, 32, and more, and Tribute Board Shop in Nelson, BC. Anon makes goggles and helmets that go together and work amazingly. Okay, so I don't wear a helmet. I can't say anything personally about the fit, but my kids rock the Anon helmets, and one day I will too. I do wear my Anon goggles nearly every time I shred. I bring an extra lens in my pocket, and I can change the lens without taking the goggles off. I can also pull the lens out when I'm on the gondola, so my mask-goggle combo doesn't fog up the lens. The masks and lenses connect with quick-fit magnets. It's a game changer, and I'm never going back. Please search out an Anon retailer near you and go down and try on some Anon goggles. They got lots of styles to suit everyone in an array of colors with tons of lens options for all different kinds of light conditions. Great goggles are a must-have for any serious snowboarder, and that's the only kind of goggles that Anon makes. Support also comes from Grouse Mountain. Buy a $119 unlimited spring pass now, and hopefully they can stay open until May. Mount Seymour supports the show. You can buy your next year's season's pass. They're on sale now. New Green Superfoods drink. Go and check that out. Volcom outerwear and Intuition custom moldable boot liners. Thanks to everyone who supports Season 7 of the FNRad Snowboard Podcast. Tony Welch is a hell of a human being. He's a celebrated snowboarding photographer, and he's already donated to Jeff Patterson's Kickstarter to build a snowboarding museum and Hall of Fame in Whistler. You can pause the show right now and go donate. We've got the link in our Instagram bio. Tony grew up across the street from Craig Elmer Kelly, whose birthday is today, April 1st. So let's all celebrate together with one of Craig's greatest friends in the world, the one and only Tony Welch, who starts out by telling me about Craig's love of Canadian prog rock giants, Rush.
Rush was like, I can't listen to Moving Pictures without thinking of Craig. And same with the Pretenders. He was early adopter of the Pretenders. Yes, 90125. And even Metallica. One thing about Rush I wanted to say was Craig very much identified with the lyric, I can't pretend a stranger is a long-awaited friend.
Nice.
We talked about that at length, of these people that would come up to him and already know your story, right? You're Craig Kelly. This is who you are. I have this image in my mind of who you are. And you're just a complete stranger, right? An absolute stranger. And having to put that face on over and over again to pretend like you know this person, the same that they think that they know you, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Can't pretend a stranger is a long-awaited friend.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was that guy. I was at Baker. My friend Chris and Derek, the three of us, I'm like, guys, there's three of us. It's Craig Kelly in front of us. Let's go ride the lift with him. Like, he's Craig. He's going to be cool, obviously. Mm-hmm. And my friends held back. They're like, oh, I don't know. And I went up with them, and we had a chair 5-length conversation about the Ghost board, which I went through the graphic with TK at Burton at the headquarters, and they've got the original drawings from Craig's direction.
One that has like all the single lines. You want something about smoking. I want something. I was at his house looking at all that stuff with him.
Oh, so rad. It's such a rad thing.
And then the artist submitted the stuff, and it came in like a 3-ring binder, because it was each one of them was the original piece of art. in like a 5x7 print holder, right?
So rad.
Because Burton took that stuff on tour, so I got to see it again, and it was a trip.
Oh, that's dope. Yeah.
As photos and stuff like that are a time machine for me. So like when I see something like that, I'm literally like sitting in Craig's living room again.
Oh.
And I can look around the room. I can't normally do that. It's really weird. It's almost like those people who do the memory contests where they form a room and they make things and objects in the room are associated with like number sequences and whatnot. And you can look around this room. And that's how you have this really huge memory where you can. That's how the Greeks did it.
Interesting. Yeah. See, I have done that for school testing or something, and I was miserable at it. I was terrible at it. But I do it through the podcast. Like I have a very distinct memory of riding the chairlift with Craig because he said a lot of really important things, and that out of the blue, he told me that Jake told me personally, as long as I'm snowboarding, I'm on the Burton team. That's so dope. Like, that's such an incredible thing to know that they had that agreement. Because, it really was who's next, right? Like in snowboarding, it was like, okay, next. Yeah, Craig was great for those years while he's competing. Now he's going to the backcountry. Next, who's the freestyle kids?
Well, they became the factory. They became a farm. That's what that would be the term. They became a farm. So I think you and I have talked about this before, but Craig, the last photo shoot Craig went to with Burton, as he showed up, and there was like 30 16-year-olds that were the Oakley Volcom Burton kids, and they all looked the same, right? And they just ran them through the ringer, and they'd pull 6 of them aside, and those kids was like the 6 that are going to go on to the next stage of the contest, and that these 10 are going to be the B team, and then these 5 are the free product kind of stuff, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
it was just, and he watched it, and it was just, he said it just was not snowboarding anymore, right? It was like farm league, like full on farm league sports, right?
Right.
And I think that was the last time he just took off. Just said, well, I'm going to go over here, and he grabbed a photographer, and they got some shots. And then after that, it was like, they told him as long as he provided photos, he didn't have to go, right? But you got to provide photos.
Yes. I mean, this year, talking with JG, it sounds like it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns. He had to take a pretty substantial pay cut to be in his integrity with this, but they didn't just drop him like that. You know what I mean? There would have been some fairly major negotiations there, and he was taking a gamble, man.
Originally, the way his original contract was set up was that if this year he made $100,000 and he went out and won $75,000, his next year's salary would be $175,000.
Oh, wow.
They had matching, like, if you win, we'll match you, but then they used that to do step increases in his salary.
Incredible.
So that's why he was still doing contests. That's why he was really prolific at contests for the last couple of years, is because that's how they built. And he passed it along to Terrier as well. I remember that. Hey, this is how we do it. And he went in and said, this is what I want, and set it up the exact same way.
Yeah. Duck Boy talked about, there isn't a day that goes by that he doesn't use some form of Craig lesson. Craig was just like throwing off this knowledge. Like, this is how we do it.
Absolutely. Here, I got a funny one for you. So it's like a 2-parter, right? So I think we know the one about Craig and the Land Rover in Japan, right?
Yes.
So he crashes the thing. They say, yeah, no big deal, even though this is the first Land Rover in Japan ever, but we need international driver's license. And so he says, yeah, I'll go get that for you. I'll be right back. And he flew home and went and got the paperwork and got an international driver's license and mailed it back to him like 2-3 weeks after the fact, after he'd already got.
Wow. Right.
And just danced right to, hey, and they were like, oh, hey, yeah, we need that international driver's license. Oh yeah, I got to get it for you. Just a second. I'll be right back. Right. This is all before computers and shit. So it's a phone call.
Yep.
So he does some Jedi mind tricks. Then cut to, it was the year that we had really nice sun at the Mount Baker, and all the Burton people were there, and blah blah blah. So I take Duck Boy and a couple of people, and we're over on Blueberry, over by Austin, right? And right there's you're looking at Mount Baker, and there's the boundary line. And I'm like, well, we can just go right on the other side of this rope and go down, shoot a few photos, and then we can hike right back up. And then suddenly Jake shows up, and I'm all super, super flustered because here's Jake's here. And we're just sitting around kind of talking, and the ski patrol rolls up, and they're saying, you guys are not supposed to go down there. And I'm like, oh, we talked to so-and-so. I talked to Martha on Pro Patrol, and she said, as long as we don't go down past here, that we're A-okay. And blah, 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 blah. And they're like, oh, okay, well, that sounds all right. And they leave. And Jake looks at me, and he's like, did you talk to anybody? I'm like, no. And he was like, you are a friend of Craig's, right? Like, you are
he recognized
all. I mean, he knew. He's like, you're a friend of Craig's, aren't you?
That's
like, yes.
Amazing. When did you meet Craig? How old were you guys?
He was in the 8th grade. I was in the 7th grade. It was in the junior high in the cafeteria. I remember the principal walking up and putting his arm on this scrawny kid's shoulder and says, are you the one they call Mongoose?
Wow.
And let him off. Craig was a shit. He was tiny, and he was just a shit. And that was the first time I met him.
Wow.
I saw him a little bit in school that year, and then he bounced out and went to high school, and I was still in junior high. But I think it was that summer we met each other and started doing the BMX bike stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was racing era BMX stuff, like a little before the freestyle stuff was going on?
That was probably like 78, 79. We were 12.
God, that's so early, actually, even in BMX.
Right. No, it was. It was the early days of BMX. BMX was just, it was the next thing, right? Boarding had already fallen off, and now next it was BMX.
So fun. Yeah, because like by the time I get introduced to BMX, it's ET, whenever that comes out, probably 84 or something.
Kuwahara bikes.
Yeah.
We're all hanging out at the Fulton shop. That's we all kind of, glommed onto that. Eventually it gets to where like Jeff's, let's see. So he was 70. He's 6 years older than me.
Yeah. He's
driving the van, taking us to BMX races. His parents are letting us work on our bikes. We're just using the shop as a place to hang out. And it's close to the river. So that's where the jumps and stuff were. So that's kind of just where it all started forming from, was that.
How early into it is Craig and Gary Ellis kind of butting heads is that just like a one-time thing at state championships, or is that?
Oh, no. It was literally every time, because you roll into these races and there's Gary Ellis, and I think it was Konarski was his name. So you've got these like factory sponsored guys sitting around in their red, white, and blue Robinson Racing stuff and Kuwahara. Yeah. And Craig is got bell-bottom pants, Pro-Tech helmet, and a ratty sweatshirt, and a shitload of pure talent, and a little bit of a little dickish as well.
Nice.
So he'd stuff them in the corners. He'd run them over the fucking berm, and they would just come unhinged that this fucking piece of shit trailer trash kid just fucking stuffed them.
Unreal.
And that's where they couldn't handle it. So it was always them kind of talking about us, right? Them standing over there on that side of the world, looking over at us on this side of the world. Back up a little bit. The Fulton's over there in the van just hookahing it up. So the parents are like, stay away from the brown Schwinn van. Bad things happen over there. That's where all the older guys, the older boys hung out, that like the cruiser class, right?
Yep.
So it was like two different worlds. It was two different worlds. Gary's dad was he ran the track, and then he was also like the ABA Northwest director. So his dad was like royalty, and it was almost like it was preordained, right?
That's kind of how it goes, right? When you think of like a Tony Hawk with Frank Hawk building the ramps in the yard and having having an eye on your kid, but also encouraging him in the right way. I've always looked up to parenting like that. Like that's always been, I thought I was going to be like that with my kids, but it takes a certain type of dad to be, the top of a ramp saying, yeah, drop in, son. What's the worst that could happen?
I think you're just putting your kids in try to put them in the right environment so that no matter what they want to do, it's a positive environment where you're letting them thrive no matter what it is.
Absolutely.
The example I was going to use, Michelle Taggart.
Yep.
Michelle, Taggart Travel. Taggart Travel out of Bend, Oregon.
No way.
So Burton started using Taggart Travel to book the Burton team. And it was like, Michelle if Michelle would love to join you guys. And we've got she'll just be there. She'll be there. She can just be there.
Wow. That's amazing.
Okay, yeah, tell her to come. Sure, that sounds great.
That's incredible. I would have had no idea, obviously.
Right, she's a great gal, has great abilities, did a lot for the sport, blah, 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 blah. But, right, it was, all these people come kind of from the same mold, right? And there's very few of them are the rags to riches, right?
Right. And I mean, you're talking trailer park, but you guys weren't trailer park. You were, we were small
just
homes.
The first generation of single parents.
Yes.
We were the first, like divorce was a thing, right? Before that, right? So we were just single parent kids. I had a single mom, and Craig lived with his single dad. Like his brother and his sister for the first part lived with his mom.
With Janet, really?
Yeah.
That's incredible. I had no idea. So then, so he's free to ride around on his bike. He's living at his dad's, kind of a
right, and
testosterone thing.
We worked in the berry fields picking berries. We went down to Valley Moving and Storage, which Pat Kelly owned, and we got in the back of trucks and got dirty and offloaded stuff and worked with like gnarly truckers would give us a baggie full of cross tops, right? Beauties.
What are they? Cross tops?
Of speed.
Oh wow! See, I don't even know. I'm the one generation behind you guys.
Yeah, so it was just truckers.
Yeah.
So we were the kids that went and worked. We worked and we bought stuff for our bikes. Versus like some of these kids were just in a different program.
Yeah.
We were low hanging fruit. It was easy to make fun of us.
There's always been that divide in every sport that I've been involved in, right? Like the poser guy with the nice bike, and he looks like the sponsored guy. He's got the suit, and the matching shoes, and everything's good, but he doesn't know how to ride his thing at all.
Yeah.
And I learned from my friends that they poached the best stuff off of my bike and traded me for the crap that they could trick me into. Yeah. Nobody's running aluminum rims anymore. It's all these plastic rims. You want to trade me for my 5 stars for sure. The dedication to work a job and get the right componentry, get your stuff set up. That's somebody cut from a different cloth for sure.
They just couldn't handle getting beat by somebody who looked like Craig. And then Craig just had enough of he would just look at you, right? He knew how to get under people's skin, right?
Yeah.
And he used kind of tactics back in snowboard competitions, but he just knew how to piss people off by literally doing nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hilarious to watch. At a certain point, Gary was quite a bit bigger than Craig, and I remember like both of them coming across this finish line and him throwing the bike and coming over and getting in Craig's face, and Craig half as tall as the lumberjack comes over there and grabs him, and he's living rent free in his head, right? Looking like, oh gee, what did I do? Innocent me.
I just watched Rad. They did a reissue with some absolutely terrible bonus features, unbelievably unwatchable bonus features. But the movie itself holds up over time. It's silly. It's fun.
Yeah.
But what you're describing reminds me a lot of the storyline of Rad. Is local kid makes good. You know what I mean?
Sure, the girl starts liking the new guy.
Of course.
A classic.
So when does snowboarding take over for BMX?
So, it's just like any other BMX kids. As soon as you got your driver's license, the novelty wears off a bit, right?
Yes.
And so I think from 16 to 17, it still happened. Like I remember driving to races and I remember going to races with Craig. But I think it started falling off a little bit. And then for Craig anyway, it became academics, right? He was a smart guy and he knew he was college bound. So I think he kind of gave up the biking part for at least BMX part for school. And also that's also when mountain bikes started making a little bit of a transition as well.
Do you think he got bored with BMX racing or?
Well, I think it's just like anything else. You have to be so he got a factory sponsorship from Sakai, which is a Canadian company.
Mm-hmm.
And so I remember him doing at least one national with them down in California. And I don't really remember. I think it might have been where he placed okay, but not super high. And I'm just imagining that the level of support that they wanted to give him probably wasn't the same as what he needed, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to be competitive with those guys and be on the national level. So I think that's part of it. And then if I had to guess, it would be the academics. Craig became hyper focused on school and education. You know, there was somewhere that he got a year and a half ahead of everybody else, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah, it would have been right around that 16, 17, right? Like, so.
Yeah. He was testing, so he didn't have to take 100 level classes in college. So he was able to take classes that were above and beyond that, like the 200 and 300 level classes. He was looking at like an internship for one of the oil manufacturers for his chemical engineering degree right before he decided to go snowboarding. That was the fork in the road.
Yeah, Kelly Jo talked about it. She was putting the pressure on, saying, fuck that, I'm not moving there. If you do that, you're on your own. Or it's something along those lines, like something like, I'm putting my foot down, we're not moving to fucking wherever it was.
I have to imagine if I'm going to say Texas, right? Something like that.
Yeah, probably.
Right.
And she was a strong presence in his life once she showed up, I imagine, hey?
Oh, yeah.
I forget who told me the story. It might have been Fulton, actually. Yeah, probably it was Jeff. But they were on their way to a contest somewhere, and he turned the wrong way. The guy's like, what's going on? And Craig's like, oh, I just have to go pick up Kelly Jo. He just didn't tell anybody that he was going to do it because I think they would have said, no, I don't know. That was kind of the gist of the story, was just that Craig made the executive decision to not tell anyone that, oh yeah, halfway through this trip, I'm going to go an hour in the other direction and pick up Kelly Jo. And actually, there's a through line of that through Jamie Lynn talked about a trip somewhere where they were in a camper. Craig made a traffic faux pas and maybe hit a bridge or something with the thing, knocked off some of the stuff off the roof. And he didn't really say anything about it until, a month or two after the trip. And he just sent invoices to like Jamie and whoever else was with them saying, when I hit that bridge with the thing, it was $300. I figure we'll split it 3 ways.
So Craig.
Oh, I love that. I love it. That one little chairlift ride, Kelly Jo was like, oh, you caught him on a good day. Because like you said, it ties into what you were saying about the Rush lyric. I know a lot about Craig at that point when I sit on that chair. He doesn't know me from anyone.
Right.
I think that I probably just said, look, I'm just a fan. You don't know who I am. Hopefully. But that was a wonderful chairlift ride for me. Like, just incredible. By the top, I'd convinced him, I thought, that he was going to ride with us. And he had just said, oh, yeah, you can ride with me if you can keep up. And I thought he was joking, but by the time my friends got off the next chairlift, he was halfway down already. He was gone. There's no way we could keep up with him.
Right. Honestly, I really do think he knew how special that was for people.
Oh, yeah.
Much as he says, it's hard, I can't pretend a stranger is along, he still said that a lot.
Yeah.
He knew that it meant a lot to people, that one-on-one interaction, that when somebody gives you their attention, right, and that they're actually listening to you, and right, not just going through the motion. I think he knew how powerful and how much people really, really appreciated that. So
I like to think I was some sort of special case that could engage him on, on that level, right? Like I recognize that he did love to talk about, he was talking about the board that he designed.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
And like how much fun that process was to go through getting those. You know what? This might be revisionist history now because I know about the graphic story now, but I know that he was talking the actual geometry of the board You know, this one's a little bit wider than the last one, a little more blunt, a little easier to, you know, move around, but it still has the proper powder kick for the nose for riding here at Baker on those good days. You know, like he was very thoughtful on his input.
Yeah. And at the same time, you had like Mike Jacoby going, I really like the blue one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
That's what, if you think about, that's what Burton was pre-Craig and post-Craig. That before that, it was people that were, I like the blue one.
Yeah.
And then Craig came in and started coming at it from an engineer's, right? We're taking notes and making, you know, paying attention to the details. And again, I said, I really like the blue one.
Yeah.
That was his bread and butter, right? That's why they wanted him there too.
Yeah, there was a kinship between Jake and Craig that has, I mean, it perpetuated all the way through till now, you know, the philosophy of listen to the riders.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Craig, from all accounts, was an anomaly in that department as well. Like he even in his first year at the University of Washington, he was all about snowboarding. Like he just was obsessed.
Yep. Somebody was asking me what he did at the local passes, because they're having a bank slalom next weekend. So somebody was asking if they, you know, so they had like it wasn't a gold pass. It was something offered for the university. So he could go up to any one of the passes and for $150 or something.
Oh, wow.
To make it cheap. And he was going up there and setting his own gates up, right? Setting his own gates and going up there and bashing gates, doing night skiing.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, one year I got some footage of him, you know, Pat filming him. I think he's trying a 540 or something on a kind of a quarter pipe. And you could just see, like, here he is with his dad up there. His dad's lugging probably a VHS recorder giant thing and a shoulder-mounted camera. You know, he's not up there with a bunch of buddies having fun. He's, like, trying to learn a new trick that's going to give him the edge on competition that year.
Right.
It's cool, man.
Yeah.
Hearing from Tim Wendell, that they did their first camp together at Blackcomb, that was a game changer for me too. Just seeing how these guys, their minds worked, right? Like they go to camp in Austria and then they come back and go, hey man, like riding all summer gives us a real advantage.
I think that's when, was Craig on his graphic board by that point? Or because I was there with them when they were both there the same, because Wendell was only up there for one summer.
Mm-hmm.
And we joke about it because we call him the liquored pig.
So that has to be around the checker pig time.
Yeah.
So then Craig's on a graphic board that year. Yeah. So I think he is on
a graphic board.
I'm pretty sure he's on a graphic board because Wendell was on the Sims the year that they go to the glacier, and so is Craig, aren't they?
Yeah. Well, that was you're thinking of the ones that Bud has been posting recently, and so that's like the year before. So that's when they were both still on Sims. That's when ISM was still the raid. They had gone down and done the product test with Rankwit and Duck Boy. So that was like the summer. So that was like 88, 89.
There you go.
I think we're getting into like the next one's like 89, 90. And then the following summer, Wendell went 100% down to Mount Hood. And basically, so it was Craig and Achenbach were the Blackcomb. Blackcomb.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I went to Wendell's in 90.
Did you?
That was the year that I went. Yeah. And I feel like, you know what's funny is I rode the chairlift with Tim Wendell. He came and did a checker pig demo in Ontario, rode the chair up with him, and I said, I'm going to Craig Kelly's camp this summer. And he said, don't do that. Come to my camp. It's way better. And I think he actually said, yeah, you don't have to ride a bus up a dirt road. Like the glacier's better. It's better. Like he was on his sales pitch. Like he had this, and then I went and told my mom, Tim Wendell himself invited me to his camp, like as though he had seen some talent there, but we just rode the chairlift together. That was it.
All I know is I watched all the kids hanging out in the village after camp, getting into trouble.
Oh yeah.
Really good time. And then I went to Mount Hood and this was before they had all the ramps and everything. So it was cool, but it just wasn't Whistler cool, right?
Interesting. Yeah, that's right. Whistler would have had it especially that year, because we had at the Wendell camp there was like Checker Pig mountain bikes, a trampoline, and maybe a little 4-foot half pipe.
Right.
That wasn't really that inviting. And
there
like
was no Canadian girls getting off the bus.
No. No. And Tim
over there, no creek, no, you know what I mean?
Tim came up to me and my buddy Steve with a crumpled up tinfoil pipe that somebody smoked weed out of, and he goes, I know it was you two that did this. One more incident like this and you're going home. And it wasn't us. Like, we were like, fuck, someone's got weed here? That would have been nice to know. What's going on? Fuck. And we're getting in trouble for something we didn't do. The whole time I was at Wendell's camp was me and this guy, Steve. We got put in the beginner group. We're so mad about that. Wendell accuses us of smoking weed when we hadn't. We're so mad about that. We're riding, mountain bikes instead of skate ramps. We're like, shit, we should have gone to Blackcomb, man.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And that group of people that came out of Kelly camp that are still friends now, right? Like there's a bunch of them. Dano introduced me to so many rad people. Javis, there's there's a bunch of guys that stay in touch over that. Somebody else has reached out just in the last week or two to say, man, there's still a good group of people that keep in touch from Craig's camp. It sounds like Kelly Jo was really the celebrity, camp
she
runner.
Was. At a certain point, Craig was making like guest appearances, right? Mm-hmm. At the beginning, Craig was there on day one and taking everybody through it. And then by the end, it was like, well, Craig will be here on the third, fourth, and fifth days, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But I say that, but at the same breath, I can see Craig with this gigantic goiter on his upper lip, right?
Yeah,
because they're out in the woods playing paintball. Eddie's got a bandana on his face instead of a plastic guard, right? Yep. And he sneaks up behind this Japanese girl, and I think rather than shoot her, he tries to like say something, and she like jerks and sticks the gun over her shoulder and shoots him in the face. So he's got this gigantic purple marble hanging off his upper lip.
Oh wow!
Right, trying to put like zinc on it so it doesn't burn up on the glacier.
Unbelievable.
But yeah, so I'll say Craig was like kind of a guest, but then in the same breath, I'm like, yeah, then he got shot in the face by a Japanese camper, so I guess he was kind of hands on.
Yeah, no doubt. A really special time though in snowboarding. That is when. That's when I got into snowboarding, and I think a lot of the listeners will recognize that as the time. Like, who was it that was? Oh, yeah, Kevin Kinnear. He said the years leading up to a board that could work at a ski resort, those are real tough years. Like, you needed to be...
Well, you had to be committed. You had to have big bone spurs on your feet because these bindings are just torturous things, but you're just like, God damn it, I gotta do that. That's what I did. I got out there and went, oh my God, my feet are gonna fall off. I'm like, this is something I want to do so bad, and it's killing me.
Killing you. Yeah.
Killing me. Those black non-folding, the first Burton bindings, the black ones that didn't have the folding high back.
And you had to cut the third strap off if you wanted to.
Talking about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was crazy. Those things still existed when I started. Like, you could see Like, but yeah. So from the very first board that I had, I wanted to have the Burton Air bindings. Like, they existed from when I started. So there was no point in going back to, I mean, I did have a pair of those Sims clasp buckle bindings just because they were in the magazines so much. They were so easy to spot, but they didn't work. They had pressure points wherever you clipped them down. They just reefed into your feet, and then the high backs broke, and it was a nightmare. And they were too narrow, and the clips on the clasps always broke. So yes, there was always this. You were just always one broken piece away from crazy foot pain and possibly dangerous.
Right. Constantly working his boots and his tongues on his boots. Yeah.
We call them the Kelly tongues, right? Were they officially called Kelly tongues in the line?
They sold them at least one season, if not more.
It's Kelly tongues. And they were, the Elfgen guys were doing that too.
Yes. So yeah, they had like basically the same type of thing, but it was attached to the ankle and toe strap. Which
kind of made sense if you got it dialed in, but if it was to one side or the other, it really sucked.
Right. And that's what Craig's was totally like that. It was all asymmetrical, kicked off to one side.
There was so much asym at that time. Hey, that was a real. It came from windsurfing, but the cant stuff too, right? Like
canting. Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say. The cant plates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I honestly, it was just throwing everything at the wall and seeing what stuck, right?
Yeah, because Craig's knee together style, Janet was saying that came from, he was bow-legged when he was a kid, and they fixed him to a board to try and fix that. Right? Like, that he wobbled around on this board that he was stuck to like Forrest Gump, like when he was a little kid.
My God.
And then he went opposite of bow-legged to the, knees in. Still, putting your knees together now still to me means you're trying to ride like Craig style.
Oh, absolutely.
100%. Like I have cant wedges in my bindings, just foam ones. They're comfortable. Yeah.
I remember a conversation from the trade show in SIA.
Yep.
And it was Hexel Skis came up to Mike Olson and asked him something about their quadratic side cut and blah, 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 blah. And, Mike Olson's got that perpetual blank look on his face, smile, 1,000-yard stare. And he's just like, yeah, man, I thought it up, wrote it on the back of a cocktail napkin in a bar in Baldy, right? And they're like, oh, that's kind of funny because we spent like $350,000 in research and design coming up with the exact same thing. And they were basically accusing him of industrial espionage, right?
Right. Meanwhile, he's literally the guy.
Fucking, wow, it just came to me on the beach in Bali.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I remember talking to him because I'd created in my mind this idea that he invented side cut. And he said, well, I didn't invent side cut, but I took different lengths of string and drew the, radius on pieces of cardboard. And it just looked to me like 8 meters was the right length. That's where we started. And really an 8-meter side cut on a 160 centimeter board is dead on. Like that's what Craig's, ketchup and mustard was.
Yeah, and it hasn't changed all that much either.
No, because it is the right thing. But there is no way Mike Olson was looking at any other stuff to try and figure out, hey, how do we do this? He's just drawing with strings and thinking with his brain. Yeah, and Baldy smoking a bit of ditchweed or something and just, whoa, wait, what's this? But he's had so many inventions over the years that are just so bizarrely on the nose, hey?
Yeah, he's a mad scientist. He really is. He's a mad scientist. There's not very many people like him. That's why they're still in business, right?
I think so. Yeah, he's one of the most interesting people for sure. Did Craig ever do a stint with Mervyn?
He did not.
Rankwit did. Fulton did a long time on there. Matt Cummings and Jamie.
Fulton was like, he rode on naked boards, and it's just, Mervyn at a certain point was like, you live here. We got the Northwest covered. we're pretty covered here. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since I've been down to Baker because of the COVID thing, but they've got Baker on lock. Like Mervyn is Baker. Baker is Mervyn.
Right. And it is. And they've admitted, like when they were having their drama with the Mount Baker Snowboard shop, they even said as much that, that Mount Baker is basically like the North Shore. This is something special, very special in the snowboard culture, in the snowboard world, and it always will be, right? And we'll always have our presence here. Was
Craig ever on the Mount Baker Snowboard Shop team? Like, did that happen?
He wore Mount Baker Snowboard hats and a headband that Bobby, George's wife Bobby, made. So that would be the team.
Oh, wow. I want that headband.
I know, right?
It's just...
We need to find some of the headbands.
Yeah, that is the holy grail of snowboarding for me right there, is a Dobus made Craig Kelly headband. Give me a break.
Right.
Yeah, that's sick. Yeah, that shop was such an amazing spot to go through for a Canadian coming out to the West Coast. Going to Whistler is one thing. It's interesting. It's like if you weren't paying attention, Mount Baker was kind of hard to get it, like to get it. Like, okay, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
What the fuck is going on here? Like, it's old and rickety and kind of feels like it's at the end of a dead end highway where someone might dump a body or something off the side of the road, or it did not feel like going into Whistler. There was no village.
Right. You nailed it right. Dead end road, physically and metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a dead end road for your career.
Yeah, man. Isn't that nuts?
What kind of exposure are you going to get at Mount Baker? Why do I want? What was the biggest one? I have to go to Japan. I'm like, dude, it's dumping at Baker, and I have to go to Japan. It's like, dude, you get to go to Japan. Mount Baker, you're waiting for you when you get back. It's all good.
Unreal.
Physically and metaphorically, it's a dead end road. In the '60s, draft dodgers hit out in Glacier.
Yeah, I could see that. That was the vibe. Yeah, so you're going through and you're looking at Graham's and you're looking at these places and you go to the Mount Baker Snowboard Shop, you get it. You're like, holy shit, everybody who's anybody has come through here and they've signed their picture. It's on the wall. Incredible. And then you talk to Marcella, you're like, this place is dope. Can I get one of those stickers? And yeah, it's the $5. Okay, yeah, sure. But even riding on the mountain, like, it took a little bit to figure out. But for my money right now, as a, guy with hindsight being 2020, yeah, Baker versus Whistler, there's no contest. You go to Baker, man. It's just sick. Steep terrain, amazing people, from the parking lot staff, the lifties to, Pro Patrol. Everybody's there, just gets it. It's dope.
Yeah, there was years ago that Chevy came in and wanted to make bank slalom like a $250,000 purse, right? So all the top pros would get a brand new truck, right? So it'd be the Chevy Mount Baker, legendary Mount Baker, sponsored by Chevrolet. They turned them away.
It's incredible.
It is, right?
It's nuts, but it makes a lot of sense. And there's got to be some part of Craig, either he took it, he ran with it, because Duncan and the Howitt family were doing it, or he helped them solidify that, philosophy.
I don't know. I don't know what, I don't know. But duct tape, like the metamorphosis of the duct tape trophies, right? I mean, we know about the duct tape, but just on the cheap, right?
Yeah, totally. Right.
Spray paint a roll of duct tape, gold. Here we go.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So were you riding with Craig at that time? Because did he win the first one? No, he won the third one, I think.
Got fourth place in the first one. So let's see, how did this all go down? I left in 1985, April of 85. I left and came back in April of 86. So I was gone for a year in the military.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of when Craig, a lot of his, he moved out to Colorado during that time and trained. That's when he started taking it a lot more serious. That's when he dropped out of school.
Yeah.
Right about that same time. And then I came back home and got into the apprenticeship. So going back to, the 85 was the first bank slalom. Mm-hmm. I was still on skis.
Oh,
I still skied. I went out with my brother and Craig and a couple of other people on snowboards with bread bags on my feet and boots. And just went, you guys are on glue. I don't know what's wrong with you guys. I'd skied for 6-7 years. So I was a skier. I wasn't a skateboarder. So I got on this thing with we probably had 15 inches of snow with bushes everywhere and the leash on the front. And I was just like, yeah, no. No. So I was on skis. I watched the first bank slalom. My claim to fame is standing at the top and this guy goes, "Who is that?" Right. And I said, "That's my next door neighbor, Craig." And it was Tom Sims.
Of course it was. That's so sick.
Sims. Who is that?
So you were there at the genesis moment that Tom Sims notices Craig Kelly.
We're getting old and we smoked a lot of weed. So I'm like, is this like one of those false memories?
Sure.
This is one of those false memories. And I actually posted something on Facebook and Tom Sims piped in and said he remembered it. And I was like, oh my God.
That's so dope.
It was pretty dope. I fanboyed out big time on that.
That's such a moment in history, right?
Right.
Tom noticing Craig. Fuck.
Tom gave him his board.
Yeah. Yeah.
Gave him a board. Left him with a board. Left him that day with a board.
Yeah, he would have been riding what? Did he even get a board from the Fulton bike shop, or was he just on the rentals?
They all bought them.
They bought them.
Yeah. So I think they bought one, and I think the shop was able to buy, who knows what they did. So, but the shop called up and bought 4 or 5 or 6 of them, right?
Yeah.
So who knows if they gave them a discount or whatever. But those guys bought them.
Yeah.
If I remember right, the Action Now magazine came out, Burton Snowboards. Fulton went down to Oregon sand dunes with a bunch of guys from the bike factory and did sandboarding. And they came back home and started cutting boards for the snow.
Amazing.
And so the bike factory guys were making their own boards. They also took an all wood Sims, like a Sims F. I don't even know. I don't know Sims. Paul Barcy laid an edge into it.
Yep.
And so, and then Tom Sims saw that, and then the next year, I think Tom might have sent one up to Washington to have an edge put in it as well. Then the next year, they all came out factory with edges in them.
Yeah, I think Fulton talked about that. I actually went down and met with Ernie DeLost, who he was on the East Coast for a long time, moved out to San Diego, and has been making boards for 40 years.
Right.
And he just randomly had one of those Sims FEs with the Barcy edge. Like Eric Gallison, I think, was the one that was putting all those things together, and he has one. And I go, "Do you know what that is?" I think that was only a team board. And then when I actually talked to Jeff Fulton about it, Jeff said, "No, there was a year that they did all the boards for Sims, because the whole production run for the whole year was 100 boards or something."
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And I have no idea who did it for Barcy.
Yeah, I think it was Eric Gallison. Was
probably
what Jeff was saying. which it's so fun to learn. Like before this whole thing went down for me getting this podcast going, I wouldn't say that I had any handle on snowboard history or even really the desire to,
right?
but to find out. Like it just didn't seem like, I don't know, relevant. There wasn't enough time to look back. But as soon as I started this, which is like 7 full seasons ago, I found with Craig, just with his clout in snowboarding, this focal point that just everything kind of made sense around it, right? Like, so if I'm talking to Jeff and I'm asking about Craig, every time I'd ask about Craig, some wonderful story would pop up. Even I'm thinking now of like even the negative ones, like Peter Line went into his local shop and Craig was signing autographs and Peter knew who he was. Like, oh, that's Craig Kelly. But he was kind of embarrassed because he was in there to get a stomp pad, you know what I mean? Which is not the coolest accessory. And the guys were like, what do you want? You want to get a poster signed by Craig Kelly? And he goes, no, I just want a stomp pad. And poor Craig's sitting there, you know, like nobody's come through the shop yet to get a signature. The first kid that comes in, they're like, hey, buddy, look, Craig Kelly's here. He's like, yeah.
I just want a stomp pad.
Yeah, just a stomp pad, please. One stomp pad. But yeah, Craig, I've never met anybody that didn't have some great story about how Craig came up to them and said, dude, you've really improved from last year, or wow, what is that, you know, thing that you're riding? And of course you got your Rankwitz going, you know, I taught him everything about style and where to grab your board and all that kind of stuff.
That year, that board that I have up at Baldface, so the Mayo board.
Yeah,
that year was a terrible snow season at Mount Baker. That's how that thing just got tore up. It's blown up like a couple, 2-3 times. But anyway, we drove up to Big White to go find snow. So Fulton, Kelly Joe, Dano, Craig, and I, we all drove up to Big White, and Big White was like, "How many days did it take for you guys to get here?" And we're like, just the one. And they're like, wow, I didn't know you could drive here from fucking the States. Wow, god damn. I did, like, they'd never left Kelowna. Like you guys set up a camp for like a couple of days, and then, you know,
that is so horses? Amazing. Yeah, that's great. I remember going to Windell's. I was the only Canadian there, and people were asking questions like that. Does it snow there all year round?
Craig's out there in his yellow pants and is doing his Craig Kelly thing, and he sees some kid on like a mint Sims FE,
nice.
Mint, with gags on it and the whole thing. And he went over to him and he tells the kid, I will give you a brand new board and bindings for that.
Wow.
And he did. He got it from him because this was kind of like after enough time had gone from the Sims thing. I kind of had a feeling that he might have purged a little bit of some of his Sims shit when he wasn't all that happy about it.
Right.
And I think there'd been enough distance between it that he was like, I want one of those. But I would love to just run into that kid. How?
Yeah, because that kid now is in his 50s.
Winter of '92.
Yeah, and you know, because that's the lore everywhere, right? Like you say, Tom gave Craig his personal board, who was just saying that George Pappas just told me, you know, he broke his Sims board in front of Tom, and Tom went, "Holy shit, take my board," you know, and he got his first photo in the first issue of Transworld is on that board that Tom gave him. Like, and I've heard probably 5-10 times, Craig gave me the board. This is Craig's board. You know what I mean? Like this, he came through here. He gave me the board on his feet. Yeah, maybe that's the other half of that story. Is I had to give him my old Sims piece of crap. Yeah, wow, man. That's incredible. Yeah, going through the archives. So I was at the museum archives for the Vail Snow Sports Museum, or I was at their overstock, and Craig's brother Brian had sent, you know, there's the board that Craig was on the day that he passed away. Like that's, I was just like, that felt eerie to see that.
Yeah.
But the board that really took my breath away was there was a blank bottom Mystery Air, which there must have been dozens of those.
Yeah.
But to hold one in my hands that was T-bolted just for Craig, I was like, oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. But also right beside it, there's a Sims FE. It's like kind of clear purple top sheet, P-Tex top sheet. And it's got a sticky note on it that I think has Craig's handwriting on it. That's like a feedback about the flex on the board. Like, so even back as far as Sims, I think he was that design guy, right?
Yeah.
He was saying,
absolutely,
this one's too stiff. Make him softer than this. So he would have been a kindred spirit with Tom as well, I imagine.
Yeah. No, him and Tom got along fine. It was just, that's when money started coming into the sport.
Dwarfman, yeah. Yeah,
Sure.
you know, I don't know if you listened to the Donna one, but Donna said that, and this is, 30-year-old information, so who knows if she remembers properly, but she said that Tom said, oh yeah, if you want to go up to the Baker Bank Slalom, no, to the Worlds. We'll send you the Worlds on Sims for sure, but you have to sign a lifetime contract to me, Tom Sims, no matter what, iteration Sims is in. Like, if you don't sign this lifetime contract, then I won't send you to this contest. So it was kind of under duress that the contract was signed. That's what Donna remembers.
And and the other one too is it was a verbal is really what it came down.
Right.
Craig told him, he said there's money being offered, and Tom says if somebody's willing to pay you money, you need to jump on it.
Right.
Because I don't have any money, I'm not going to have any money, right? Where this is going. This is Southern California, hang loose, shaka bra, right?
Well,
and so Craig took that as his verbal release from his contract. So that was the whole basis for the entire thing, was that it was a verbal release.
Interesting. That makes total sense too. Well, he eventually won out, and I think honestly the lawsuit just helped Craig, helped Burton. Like they stayed very creative through the whole process. Like, yeah, Mystery Air, sure, okay, we're not allowed to put base graphics on this board. I wonder who our next pro could possibly be. You know what I mean? Like, it was so obvious what was going on.
No, it was early action sports marketing too, right?
So good. Yeah.
They were all cutting their teeth, right? They didn't know, nobody knew what they were doing. The skateboarding came through, but that was literally a child sport, right?
Yeah.
In the 70s, skateboarding never gained any kind of credibility. It was a child sport.
Yep.
So this was all action sports marketing 101.
That's the other thing that I've learned through doing the show is that I always felt like it was surfing was well established, and then skateboarding came on the scene, and then snowboarding came on the scene. But really, professional surfing, snowboarding, and skateboarding developed kind of side by side, because there is snowboarding in the 70s alongside skateboarding. And then, 85, 86, during that big skateboard boom, that was a really big push for snowboarding as well. Even surfing was going through board shape changes and stuff at that time too. So the board sports kind of grew up together like brothers. Like, surfing's more like the older brother, and skateboarding is like definitely the younger brother, and snowboarding's kind of like a middle
Snowboard's
brother.
Wacky cousin that comes for visits.
Totally.
Craig tried to take his lead for that's a great analogy. Craig tried to take his lead from the older brother, which was, do you ever hear a surfer talking about how big his wave was and how rad that was? No, they let their surfing do their talking for themselves. Surfers were very we're humble, right? Surfers didn't talk really that much about surfing off of the water.
By nature, yes, absolutely.
By nature, yeah. And so Craig tried to be the same way. It's like, none of this, I dropped a 30-foot cliff, blah, 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 blah. Right? You let your actions do this talking for you.
Yeah, I think I caught Jeff Krieger's story from so early in Craig's time, right? Like Craig, and maybe Jeff was just, creating a story from a bunch of different memories, but he felt like when he went to Craig's dorm room at the University of Washington, there was a powder magazine with Craig either in it or on the cover. There was snowboarding media all over the place. And Craig was like, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And Krieger was like, Jesus, never even heard of this thing. And you're already completely dedicated to doing it. Yeah, let's go tomorrow. And, took him up to one of the passes and they went and snowboarded. So
that's all right.
Yeah. Right. But I mean, yeah. So like he didn't transition from skateboarding to that. He transitioned from BMX, which is a lot of people did. Ken Achenbach, same deal.
Right.
Like the influence of BMX on snowboarding in the early days was huge.
It was because it was a duel, right? Freestyle and racing. So you had both of them right there. And freestyle BMX was becoming its own standalone thing, right? With so yeah, it was a natural transition. Especially if you were competitive, it was easy to go from snowboard to bike racing to ski to snowboard racing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No. Hey, I wanted to tell you, make a side note for a future. Eric Blem.
Yes.
Eric.
Of course.
He's doing a book on the guide up in Canada where Craig perished.
Yep. You know what? I've talked with Blem a bunch of times about this, and it's going to be unbelievable. Yeah.
Yeah.
He sat down with Rudy. He did. I think he went and knocked on the door and sat down with Rudy and had the whole conversation.
Oh, holy shit.
Yeah, man. I've gone through. So Ken Ock informed me on the first season of the whole, I'll call it the Ken Ock controversy because he kind of created it himself, really, out of thin air. Rudy, the lead guide, had some sort of bias against snowboarding, and he didn't. He was on a split board that day. Rudy was also an accomplished snowboarder, and he was really excited to have Craig up there. And according to Kelly Jo, Craig was, through the moon that he was going to learn from this guy. A lot of respect there.
Mm-hmm.
And what Ken's version was very simplified. Like, it's Canadian mountain heli guides versus the old fucking European mountain heli guides. Fuck those guys, I'll never, because, this guy had something against snowboarding and he, made really bad calls. I mean, the whole story is pretty nuanced, and there is some evidence that Rudy made really bad calls. But at the time, and Buff is the one that really kind of set me on the right path there. At the time, it was a little more loosey-goosey than it is now. There weren't hundreds of snowmobilers in the Brandywine parking lot every day of the week. There wasn't proper avalanche forecasting. There was a lot of stuff that was still kind of by the seat of your pants. And 2003 is a period at the end of that era. Like, that was it. That changed a lot of shit.
Sure.
Just like the Wiggly's heli crash in 1990.
Right.
It is the end of an era. They had to upgrade the helicopters in the same way that they had already for the Vietnam War, but they hadn't done for civilian stuff. That's why the lawsuit against the helicopter, Bell, I think it was, went through. People won a lawsuit against Bell because they'd already fixed the problem for the military, but not for civilian helicopters.
Got it.
Yeah. So yeah, so I've called dibs on Blem's book. I'm like, dude, the moment you have a working draft, I want to read that thing. It's going to be incredible.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've spoken to them a few times. I've really enjoyed it. I look forward to it.
I like that. I think I feel like having spoken with Jacques Rousseau, and I'd met him years before. Jacques' an amazing guy, and his story about choosing Craig as the subject of his first snowboard film, and the budget on that film was huge, like $100,000 or something for Smooth Group, man. Like, dude, when you go back and watch it, you go, fuck, he filmed like 9 days at Mount Hood or something. Like,
yeah.
What did he spend $100,000 on?
Peanut butter sandwiches.
I don't know, man. But
we stayed in a tent at Mount Hood.
You went for the Smooth Group filming. You were
yeah, dude. If you go back and look at it, if Craig's rallying around in his Subaru at Mount Hood, you can see me sitting in the passenger seat.
I love it.
And then right before he goes down this bluff on his mountain bike, you can see me. I was supposed to ride up to the edge and stop, and so I rode up really fast and slammed on the brakes. I went over the handlebars. So I come like tumbling in and come into like this crouch in my yellow shorts, and then Craig bombs in off the hill.
I gotta go back and watch it. I have a copy of it here. Unbelievable. That's so fun. Yeah, so that must have been super fun for you to like, this is your friend. He's the world champ. Now he's getting a film made about him. Jacques doing his thing. And yeah, my point in the whole thing is that Jacques let it ride. For me, it was, I mean, I've gone back and watched it. It's fine. It's not the greatest film ever, and it's not the most complete, and there's a lot of voices that are missing, and I think yours is one of them, obviously. Did he record with you?
No, I haven't spoke to him decades.
I mean, the thing is, he was going after Tom, he was going after Jake, and I don't know if you listened to the episode last year, but that was basically what he said. He made the mistake of getting Tom on tape Tom on Craig. And then he goes into Jake's office and just maybe even just mentions it like, oh, when I was talking to Tom about him, and Jake kicked him out of his office. Get the fuck out of here. No, get out of here. And he's like, what the fuck? What do you mean get out of here? Get out of my office. And he went back to his hotel. He didn't have the interview with Jake, which he's going, he knows that there's no movie without Jake talking about Craig. You can't just have a Craig movie with Tom Sims talking about Craig. That doesn't make any sense. And he called him back and apologized. So yeah, I mean, he was busy doing that, but he missed some really important voices for sure. You and Kelly Joe come to mind off the top of my head. But I think
it depends on what story you're trying to tell, right? It just depends on which story you're trying to tell. How deep do you want to drill down? That's what it comes to.
Yeah. And I found out pretty early on, talking about Craig, even Palmer. Yeah, I mean, obviously Palmer made his career against Craig. Like, there was the Craig way of doing things, there was a Palmer way of doing things. And he had a lot of nice shit to say about Craig too. I just found like, what an anchor point. Like, for the story of snowboarding, Craig's story is the best. It's kind of sheer perfection. And I don't mean to be disrespectful. I mean, you've lost one of your best friends. It sucks. But now all these years later, it's kind of like, I don't know how it would have looked the other way. I'm sure it would have been, he was a killer dad. I'm sure he would have attacked that with that same sort of passion.
Right.
Like what you're saying about the academic thing and about how he took BMX seriously and snowboarding seriously. I just can't imagine him not being just an incredible dad. Yeah,
he's lucky though. He died doing what he loves, and it's a cliche that we all talk about. But if you're gonna wish anything upon somebody, that would be it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do what you do what you love. If you can do it for a living, do what you love, follow your passion. And that's what he did. And he left an indelible mark on the world. So we're all better for him being here. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's been, I mean, I owe the entire show to the guy as far as like, it was just the grounding principle for moving forward. Is like, we can all agree this guy was the best to ever do it. Right. Nobody ever really challenged me on that. They're like, yeah, of course. Oh, you want to talk about Craig? Here, I'll tell you this one time, and then inevitably it would be a fun story about what it meant to be dedicated to snowboarding. Even the young guys, right? Even the young guys would say, right. I heard that he would make the cameraman put the camera in their bag to take a soul lap because none of the photos are worth anything if we didn't actually snowboard that day.
Wow. Right? That's a good one. I hadn't heard that one before. I like that.
Yeah, that's solid.
And everybody going, Abba. But he had good mentors. He had good mentors to do that. I've told you the one about the guy up at Wiggly's that brought all the staff out.
No.
You haven't heard this?
No, what's that?
So it's the Sea Shepherd guy. Who's that? You know what I'm talking about, right?
Sea Shepherd.
Oh,
the crazy captain of that ship?
Yeah. You know what I'm talking. So whoever the money is behind that, Achenbach will tell you more about this. Achenbach is that guy used to rent out Baldy and say, if you guys can get here, it's all rented. So Craig and Ock and those guys would fly to fucking Baldy and stay there, and the guy rented the whole place, right?
Wow.
Right? nice friend to have.
Yeah.
So I guess they're up at Wiggly's and they're doing their thing, and so on Wednesday we're going to come back in at 11 o'clock and we're going to pick up the kitchen staff and take them out for a ride.
Nice.
And so they're doing their thing on Tuesday. So it's Wednesday, and he goes to the guy and he says, okay, so today's the day. We're going to go back and get the people at the lodge, this kitchen staff. And I was like, I've been coming up here for 25 years, and this is like the top 3 days of my career here. We can't go back and get the kitchen staff. We just can't.
Wow.
We just can't. And you know what happened? They went back and got the kitchen staff.
Of course they did.
They went back and got the kitchen staff.
For the best day of their life. Yeah. That's crazy.
Right? And
awesome.
back in the mid 90s too, when that just probably wasn't happening all that often, right?
Right.
No, I went up there with Craig and I did the Ken Achenbach standby program, and I got to go ride one day with paying customers. It was awesome.
Go. Wonderful. That's amazing.
I slept on the floor with across the street we stayed across the street while Craig did his he was filming for Wiggly's. Or not for Wiggly's, for Warren Miller.
Oh yeah, right. There was
shine the lights on through the window and wake him up in bed.
Nice. Yeah. That's a little bit later, isn't it? Did he?
It is.
Link up with Warren Miller after the Jacques thing. It was a nice match. I remember.
It was probably the second or third one that he had been in with them. So it kind of transitioned from Jacques because it was the same people filming, right? It was the Heath brothers that were filming and shooting photos and stuff like that. So it was more or less the same talent, just a different recipient of the film.
Yeah. Because Jacques had gone off and done. Yeah, he started to do other, the mainstream kind of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he was following the industry. Yeah. And he's trying to make snowboard films like everybody was making snowboard films at the time. Just get all the top talent and get out there and hustle and get some.
And throw a shitload of money at it.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Each one of your sponsors contributes $100,000.
Isn't that nuts? Eh?
We'll just go sit in Alaska and wait for the sun to come out, right? I'm like, oh, are you kidding? Are you kidding me?
That's unreal.
There we sat for 13 days and then filmed for 2.
Yeah. Everybody up there just gripped, worried about when the sun actually does come out. Like, what is it going to be? Because yeah, I've talked with several people about that. Being from Mount Baker and going to Alaska, you got a leg up on the guy who's coming from Colorado. That's for sure.
Yeah, we went up there. We were like, okay, this is cool. This is just like Mount Baker, but a little bit bigger. It wasn't anything to get too excited about, right? But yeah, somebody from Colorado was like, oh my god.
The whole mountain's like this?
No, I don't want to smoke.
Yeah, totally, exactly. No, I don't want to do anything. I want to be just as clear-headed as possible. I need another coffee. Oh my God. Right, yeah. Yeah, Ranquet was one of the most wonderful Ranquet moments I've had was him talking about being up in Alaska with Craig, and Craig making the realization, this is what snowboarding is. There's no other influencing here. You're not riding a skateboard down a giant mountain range in Alaska, and you're not surfing a giant mountain range in Alaska. This is snowboarding. This is snowboarding's own thing that's not influenced by some other sport. And that's kind of
that's pretty pure. No, it really is.
Yeah, man. He really was the wise guru for snowboarding, wasn't he?
Well, so you know about the Holy One and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, didn't he drill a hole in one of the boards?
I hated that, the Holy One. My God.
Hated
so
it.
He must have studied anatomy somewhere along the line because he knew exactly where to punch you in the leg to give you the fucking worst charge. And it would always be like, so the Holy One, and he'd come walking up behind you, and you're like, he's standing right behind me, isn't he? Whack, right in the leg. The Holy One, yeah. And then he didn't smoke pot, so then it turned into the Unbowly One.
The Holy Unbowly One.
The Holy Unbowly One.
Oh my God.
Right. No,
That's
he
so
was.
funny.
He was the Messiah, the lead us to the promised land.
Yeah.
We were just lucky to have somebody smart and articulate and sincere and genuine. That's really what it came down to.
Yeah,
he was
thoughtful.
all those things. Yeah. And thoughtful, right?
Yeah.
It would piss me off when you'd ask him a question and he would sit there and think before he would talk. I'd be like, why can't you be like the rest of us and just spout out shit and then suffer the consequences?
Yeah.
But no, you're going to sit here and put your hand on your chin and go, and think about it for a minute.
Yeah.
God, you.
You know who else does that is Jamie. I was his quiet, calculated calmness is unsettling for me. It's like, say something, man.
Awkward pause.
And he is thoughtful and poetic in his answers as well.
Oh yeah. God, he started going off on something at Mount Hood with Jeannie. What's the name of that buffalo thing that Jamie was going off on? What's the buffalo?
I'm a buffalo and I do what I want.
No, it's not that. It's the guy who tamed a buffalo.
Oh yes, I know that.
I'll save that one. Jamie can fill you in on that one.
I love it. I love the little tidbit. That's amazing. Yeah, there's something. I have a working hypothesis, and I only have maybe 5 or 6 examples of it, but there's something about the Pacific Northwest. If you take Ranquet, Eddie Vedder, Kurt Cobain, Jamie Lynn, and to some extent Craig as well, it's like people slow down and they talk a little lower. They just lower their voice a bit. And that's what it means to be from the Pacific Northwest.
So Scott Needham had a theory that it was all of our weed that we were trying to mess with the time-space continuum. And so I think that might have something tied into it.
It could be.
He also quoted that we had the same mullet per kilometer ratio as the outback of Australia. I love Scott Needham.
Oh, that's amazing. That is amazing.
I think he did a mullet coffee table book.
Oh, that's incredible. Scott Needham. Photographer, yeah?
Yeah. All blonde guy. Surf photographer that got into snowboarding.
You know, that it's just another topic of snowboarding for me. You know, meeting Kevin Kinnear this year and him unabashedly admitting, look, we're surfers from the beach. It took everything to convince us to leave. You know, I wasn't going to go and pay money to snowboard. Somebody had to offer to buy the lift tickets and lend us the boards. Like, I'm not doing that. I already live in the best place to surf in the world. but those influences are felt, right? Still felt like.
Oh yeah, they built the foundation. They built a solid foundation. That they built a solid foundation that every single one of us are still standing on, rock solid.
Absolutely.
Right? The snowboarding's not going anywhere, but there's no talk about, snowboarding being a fad or a trend or,
right.
Right. It's not dying. None of that shit. They built a solid foundation for all of us to work from. And that's the gratitude that we owe to people that did it. Right.
When did you surf with Craig a bit? Like, when did he take up
No,
surfing?
dude, I'm like the least athletic of all of these people. There's a reason I bought a camera, man. I don't do any of that stuff. I barely snowboard. I went out. I didn't surf with Craig. I thought it was just stupid. They took me to the beach one time. I went out there and it was like knee high, and they came out of the water blue and couldn't fucking move and teeth. And I was just like, you guys are stupid.
His place at Westport, would that have been
dumb
there?
as that goddamn leash on the front of that fucking board that you were doing. This is just dumb. He built a cabin in Glacier. I helped him wire that thing up. Got money and snowboards. He was a smart guy, always watching, always paying attention. He figured out how to wire a house.
Oh, rad.
Down in Oregon, I drove down there for like a weekend and came down there and did like just small corrections to help him get. And then the inspector showed up. So, who wired your house? I did.
Oh, that's awesome.
I went down there and there was probably 8-foot waves, and I was like, holy shit. Surfing, and wow.
Yeah, it's a good spot. A number of people mentioned being out in the lineup with him there.
The other thing too is I got a job. I had a job when all of these guys were doing their Footloose and Fancy Free stuff. I was a first year apprentice in the union. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like I could just walk away and say, hey, fuck it, I just want to go play around and not do this. I would rather do that. So at a certain point when I made enough money and I think as a third year apprentice, almost done with the program, I got laid off in December, and I just went snowboarding for 3 months and came back. Rad. And they were just, what?
Oh, that's awesome.
And they were like, well, if there had been work, you'd be in trouble, but there wasn't any work for you. So I guess staying. So I kind of had to take a little bit of a back seat to, like, those guys got to do that. And then once I finished my apprenticeship and got my journeyman's license, I had like $42,000 in my retirement, and I pulled that out, and I managed to make that last like 2.5 years.
Oh, wow.
So I took from like 96 to 90, 96 and a half to 98, 99. I took off and it didn't work, and just traveled around, did snowboarding. That's when I did that was my quote photography career.
Dude, that's so sick.
And then in 98, 99 was when the companies were folding and the pro snowboarder was becoming the team manager and the photographer all wrapped into one.
Yeah.
I just went back to work. I said, fuck. Yeah, I'm done with this.
Yeah.
Went back to work in like the fall, and I went back right before Y2K.
Did you ever get a cover?
I got one cover.
What'd you get?
This guy, Ezekiel Trigonis on the Sims team, we hiked up Herman the day after the bank slalom. It was like 5 below zero, and did a Sims team photo shoot. And he hiked, like everybody went hiking up to do a turn. He hiked 4.5 times farther than everybody else. just like, what are you fucking doing? And he dropped in and left a powder trail probably 100 meters long behind him.
Oh, lovely.
Right. And he called it his checking for change because he's like all laid back and he has got his hands, looked down on his pants going, do I got a quarter in my pocket?
I love it. That's so killer. That's so killer.
Yeah, so I got one cover shot, a few posters, some catalog stuff for Mervyn. I got to travel around and have a good time, meet cool people.
That's a real deal. That's the real deal.
And live some of my life in the 90s rather than waiting till I got to be gray and old, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's inspiring. I think I'm going to retire from the Canadian Postal Workers Union next year and do what you did,
right?
Bet on myself and see if I can't.
Oh, you will.
Yeah.
You seem to be the type to land on your feet.
I hope so.
I think you'll do just fine.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, that's the only way to think. If you think you're going to wreck it, you're going to get wrecked. That's for sure. So.
My son will turn 13 this summer. I've got 5.5 years. When he turns 18, I'm done.
Oh, wow. Good for you, man. Yeah. And that's full retirement.
Yeah. I'll be 62. So I can work like doing consulting, stuff like that. So I can make a little side money when the snow's not flying, but
top it up.
No, I'm going to be the guy that everybody can laugh at. Cause I'm going to go buy one of those used Sprinter vans and travel around and people can just point at me and laugh.
Dude, that's going to be everybody at that point. I mean, really the number of people after COVID that have realized I can work from anywhere right. That's got Wi-Fi, I'm good to go. There's a whole new,
well, and I can go snowboarding. I can go here and go out going snowboarding. And then within a week, I bet you I could find 4 side jobs fixing people's electrical.
Oh, of course. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, man. Totally.
So that's my plan.
Oh, that's
disappear into the interior of British Columbia.
Yeah, that's fucking sick. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm going to go get something to eat.
Thank you so much, Tony. This has been a blast. You're the best. Thank you for doing this. All right.
Love you, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Big love.
Bye.
FNRad shoutouts this week to Tony Welch. Thanks for doing this, man. It really means the world to me. Alvin Carragay is the listener who I mentioned that reached out about Craig Kelly's camp alumni who still talk to each other 30 years later. Craig and everyone who made that camp run obviously created some amazing memories for the campers and for snowboarders from around the world who coached or worked there. I'm thinking about Ken Ock now and his camp and how much Craig meant to him and how lucky we are as snowboarders to have the legacy of Craig Elmer Kelly. Let's always cherish his memory. Thank you very much for listening. Please follow us on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go leave a 5-star review wherever you listen to this podcast. This episode was presented by Vans and brought to you by SIA Productions.